Mark sat at his small kitchen table, rubbing his eyes. The apartment was quiet except for the soft hum of the refrigerator and the occasional creak of the old building settling. His daughter Lily had long since gone to sleep, exhausted after a day of school and homework. Mark felt the weight of the world pressing down on him. Bills that wouldn't wait, a job that barely covered expenses, and a life that had grown monotonous and heavy. Being a single parent was harder than he had imagined, and tonight, more than any other night, he felt lonely. A sudden knock at the door made him start. He frowned, glancing at the clock. It was late. Visitors at this hour usually meant trouble or perhaps a drunken neighbor needing something. Slowly he got up and approached the door. When he opened it, his eyes widened. There, standing on the small, rain-slicked landing, was a figure unlike anything he had seen. She appeared elderly but carried herself with an elegance that defied age. Her skin had a faint glow, soft and pale, and her eyes shimmered like silver in the dim light. She wore a flowing robe of material that looked alive, shifting colors subtly like liquid metal. "I'm sorry to bother you at this hour," she said in a voice that was calm, warm, and oddly melodic. "May I come in? The storm is too strong for me to stay outside." Mark hesitated. His instincts screamed caution, but something in her tone made him pause. There was no malice, only vulnerability and quiet dignity. His empathy won over his skepticism. Sure. "Come in," he said, stepping aside. She entered, brushing past him gracefully. The air seemed to shimmer slightly in her presence, though he wasn't sure if it was real or just his imagination. She carried nothing with her, yet her presence filled the room in a way he could not describe. "I'm Mark," he said, closing the door behind her. "And this is my home. It's not much, but it's safe for the night." "Thank you, Mark," she replied. "I am Eldara. I have traveled far, and I am weary." Mark noticed her hands were delicate and slightly translucent, and her movements had a rhythm that was unfamiliar but somehow comforting. Despite being weary, she moved with care and purpose, like someone who had lived many lifetimes. "Do you want some tea?" Mark asked, gesturing toward the small kettle. She shook her head gently. "No, thank you. I only need rest." She gave him a small smile, a hint of warmth that seemed to carry centuries of experience. Mark felt a strange mix of unease and curiosity. You're not from around here, are you?" Eldara's silver eyes twinkled. "Not from this world, no. But that does not matter. What matters is the kindness you have shown by opening your door to me." He nodded awkwardly. I guess it's just common sense. You can't stay out in the rain like that." Lily, sensing someone new, peeked from the top of the stairs. Her eyes grew wide when she saw Eldara, but she did not scream or run. There was a softness in Eldara's gaze that made Lily feel safe despite the unusual appearance. "This is my daughter, Lily," Mark said, walking over to guide her downstairs. "She's a bit shy at first." Lily nodded and whispered a cautious hello. Eldara bent slightly, bringing her face closer to Lily's level. "Hello, little one. You have a strong heart, and I can see your curiosity shines brightly." Lily tilted her head, unsure what to make of her words. "Thank you," she murmured, though the hint of a smile appeared. Mark motioned for her to go back to her room. "She's tired. We'll all rest soon." As the night unfolded, Eldara made herself comfortable in the small living room. She did not require a bed or blanket. Instead, she seemed to draw comfort from the quiet and the warmth of the apartment. Mark watched her, fascinated. There was an intelligence in her gaze that felt almost otherworldly. Over cups of weak tea he insisted on making for himself, Eldara spoke softly, sharing fragments of her life. She told him of distant planets, civilizations that had risen and fallen over eons, and knowledge of the stars that made Mark's head spin, yet she revealed little about her own origin, as if the story itself was too vast for human understanding. "You have faced many challenges, Mark," she said at one point, her voice gentle but knowing. "Raising a child alone is no small feat. You carry burdens that others would not survive." Mark sighed, leaning back in his chair. "You have no idea. Some days I feel like I'm barely holding on." "You are stronger than you realize," Eldara replied. "Sometimes strength is not in fighting but in enduring, in caring when the world seems indifferent." Mark felt a lump in his throat. He had heard comforting words before, but hers carried a weight that felt like truth. Lily returned briefly to the living room, holding a small notebook. "Daddy, she knows so much. She even helped me with my science project in my dreams, she said, eyes wide. Mark looked at her in surprise. In your dreams? Yes, Lily said softly. I dreamt she explained how stars are born and how planets grow. It was amazing. Eldara's silver eyes softened. Knowledge can take many forms, young one. Dreams are sometimes the bridge between what is known and what can be understood. Mark couldn't help but feel a twinge of awe mixed with unease. There was something in Eldara that suggested her visit was no accident. She seemed to observe everything with care, from the worn furniture to the small stack of bills on the table, without judgment, yet with a clarity that was unsettling. The hours passed and the storm outside continued to rage. Mark found himself asking questions he had never considered, about the universe, the stars, and life beyond Earth. Eldara answered in ways that made him think differently, challenging assumptions he didn't know he had. Finally, exhaustion claimed them all. Eldara rested in a simple position on the couch, not needing blankets, as if the world's chaos could not touch her. Mark sat nearby, staring at the flickering lights of the rain-soaked city outside, feeling a strange mix of calm and anticipation. Before sleep overtook him, Eldara spoke again, her voice barely above a whisper. Mark, what you have done for me is simple kindness, yet it is extraordinary. The universe chooses paths for each being. Your path has crossed mine for reasons you will understand in time. Mark blinked, unsure how to respond. I don't know what to say. You need not say anything. Just continue as you have. Your choices, your heart, your care for Lily, they are your gift to the future. As she drifted into silence, Mark felt the weight of her words settle over him. There was a strange reassurance in knowing that this encounter, as inexplicable as it was, carried meaning beyond his understanding. Lily, now finally asleep, curled up with her stuffed animal. Mark watched over her, realizing that something profound had begun the moment Eldara had appeared at their door. A quiet sense of hope had been planted, fragile but growing, and for the first time in months, he felt that perhaps they were not entirely alone in the universe. Morning would bring clarity, or perhaps more questions, but for now, the night had done its work. Eldara's presence had reminded Mark of the unseen possibilities in life, the small, extraordinary moments that could transform ordinary existence into something remarkable. And as the rain continued to fall softly against the windows, Mark knew that whatever came next, their lives had been quietly, irrevocably changed. Morning sunlight filtered weakly through the rain-streaked windows. Mark stirred awake on the couch, feeling the strange calm from the night before still lingering. Eldara was gone. For a moment he wondered if she had been a dream, a figment of exhaustion. But the faint shimmer in the air near the couch suggested otherwise. He rose quietly, careful not to wake Lily, and checked the small kitchen table. A simple note was placed there, written in a flowing, elegant script that seemed almost to move as the light touched it. Continue as you have, Mark. I will return when the time is right. For now, trust yourself and your daughter. You are stronger than you know. Mark held the note, a strange mixture of awe and confusion filling him. He had so many questions, who she truly was, why she had come to them, what she meant by the time being right. But he also felt a quiet reassurance. He carefully tucked the note into his jacket pocket, knowing that somehow it mattered more than anything else in his life at that moment. Over the next few days, life seemed to shift subtly. Small changes began to appear, almost imperceptible at first. The old leaky faucet in the kitchen suddenly stopped dripping. A stubborn appliance in the apartment, long thought broken, began to work as if by magic. Bills that had been nearly impossible to pay were suddenly manageable. Mark noticed that his focus improved at work, allowing him to finish tasks with more efficiency than before. Lily, too, seemed different. She awoke each morning brimming with curiosity and energy. Her schoolwork, once a source of constant stress, began to come easily. She asked questions about the universe, questions that even Mark struggled to answer, but somehow, her understanding seemed to grow in ways he could not explain. One evening, Mark returned home from work to find Eldara sitting in the living room, waiting as if she had always been there. Her presence no longer startled him. Instead, it felt comforting, like a lighthouse guiding him through the fog of his daily struggles. "Hello, Mark," she said softly. "You have done well. You and your daughter are learning. But now it is time for a greater understanding." Mark hesitated. I don't understand." "Greater understanding about what?" Eldara smiled faintly. about your potential, about the possibilities within you and Lily. You have been given the chance to grow stronger, not physically, but in ways that matter far more. For the next several hours, Eldara began teaching them things that seemed impossible. She guided Mark through exercises in observation, patience, and critical thinking, demonstrating methods of problem-solving that stretched his mind. She spoke of the interconnectedness of all things, the universe, life, and consciousness, and how even small decisions could ripple outward in ways humans rarely understood. Lily listened attentively, her young mind absorbing lessons effortlessly. She learned to notice patterns in the world around her, to ask questions that went beyond simple curiosity, and to trust her instincts. Her natural intelligence blossomed under Eldara's subtle guidance. Mark could not help but marvel at the transformation. He had always wanted the best for Lily, but Eldara's presence had opened doors he did not know existed. He also realized that he himself was changing. He felt more patient, more aware, more capable of handling challenges that had once left him anxious and exhausted. One afternoon, the air in the apartment shifted. Eldara's silver eyes grew serious as she looked out the window toward the city. "Mark, something is approaching. You may not realize it yet, but your skills, your resilience, and your courage will be tested. It is time for you to apply what you have learned." Before he could ask what she meant, a distant rumble shook the building. At first it seemed like thunder, but the vibrations were different, deeper, more powerful. Then he noticed the news alert on his phone. A sudden flood had swept through a nearby district, endangering lives and threatening to spread further. Panic surged in Mark's chest. "What do we do?" he shouted. Eldara placed a hand on his shoulder. "Calm yourself. Trust what you have learned. Lead, guide, and protect. You are not alone." Mark quickly gathered Lily, explaining calmly that they would need to help others safely. As they stepped outside, the sight that met them was overwhelming. Streets were flooded, cars stranded, and people calling out for help. The city had descended into chaos, yet Mark felt a strange clarity. He began organizing neighbors, directing them to higher ground and safe shelters. His instructions were precise, his movements confident. He remembered Eldara's lessons on observation and foresight, predicting the flow of water and how to navigate it. People looked to him for guidance, and he did not falter. Meanwhile, Lily assisted where she could, helping elderly neighbors, carrying supplies, and offering comfort. Eldara followed silently, her presence almost invisible to others, but her guidance was palpable. When a weak bridge threatened to collapse, Eldara whispered subtle warnings, and Mark acted swiftly, redirecting people to safety just in time. Hours passed, and slowly, the immediate danger began to subside. Though the city had suffered, many lives were saved thanks to Mark's leadership, Lily's courage, and Eldara's quiet guidance. Exhausted but alive, Mark finally allowed himself to breathe. Eldara approached, her silver eyes calm once more. "You see now why I came to you. You have the courage, the heart, and the mind to face challenges beyond what humans typically endure. Your potential is far greater than you imagined." Mark shook his head, still catching his breath. I just did what I thought was right." "That is exactly why you succeeded," Eldara said. "The universe often chooses ordinary beings to perform extraordinary acts. You have learned, you have led, and you have protected. You and Lily have grown stronger because of your choices, not because of my presence." Lily hugged Eldara tightly. "Thank you for helping us," she whispered. Eldara smiled, a rare and gentle expression. "No, little one. You helped yourselves. I merely showed you the paths that were already open to you." As the sun began to rise, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink, Eldara prepared to leave. Mark felt a pang of sadness. Her presence had become a part of their lives, a guiding light through darkness and uncertainty. "I will not be gone forever," she said, sensing his thoughts. "You will continue to grow, and one day our paths will cross again. Until then, remember what you have learned. Trust yourselves, care for each other, and never underestimate your strength." With that, she stepped toward the edge of the street, and in a blink, she was gone, leaving behind only a faint shimmer in the air and the echoes of her wisdom. Mark held Lily's hand tightly as they walked back to their apartment. The city was slowly recovering, people helping each other, inspired by acts of courage. Mark realized that the lessons Eldara had imparted were not just for survival. They were for living, for seeing possibilities beyond immediate struggle, and for nurturing courage and empathy. Days turned into weeks and life returned to a new normal. Mark and Lily faced challenges, but they did so with a newfound confidence and understanding. Mark noticed changes in himself. He was calmer, more perceptive, and better able to handle adversity. Lily thrived in school and in her personal growth, her curiosity and intelligence blossoming beyond what he thought possible. And though Eldara did not return immediately, her presence lingered in subtle ways, a feeling of calm in difficult moments, a sudden insight or a solution that seemed to appear almost magically. Mark understood that she had given them more than guidance. She had planted seeds of potential, showing them that humans could rise above limitations, even in ordinary circumstances. One evening, as Mark tucked Lily into bed, she looked up at him with bright, thoughtful eyes. "Daddy, do you think we'll ever see her again?" Mark smiled softly, brushing her hair from her forehead. "I think we will, sweetheart. And when we do, we'll be ready." Outside, the stars shimmered like never before, and Mark felt a connection to the universe that went beyond human understanding. Their lives had been changed quietly, profoundly, and he knew that this was only the beginning. Mark closed the window and turned off the light, feeling a calm determination settle over him. Whatever challenges lay ahead, he and Lily would face them together, stronger, wiser, and ready for the extraordinary. And somewhere beyond the stars, Eldara watched, knowing that the small human apartment she had visited had become a place of growth, courage, and hope, a place where humanity's potential had quietly begun to shine.